What if everything you've been taught about worship was missing the most important part? Right now, millions of believers are singing songs, raising hands, feeling emotions, and walking away spiritually unchanged. Not because God doesn't hear them, but because they've never been taught what worship actually meant in the original Hebrew text. There's a physical act, so powerful, so humbling, that every biblical patriarch practiced, an act that unlocked heaven's response. And it wasn't music. Before this video ends, you'll discover the Hebrew word the church stopped teaching, and why your body might be the key to breakthrough you've been searching for. But here's the thing. If you want access to content like this every week, biblical truths the modern church won't touch, hit that subscribe button right now. This isn't just information, this is transformation, and you don't want to miss what's coming next. I know what you might be thinking right now. Another video telling me I'm doing worship wrong? No, this isn't about condemnation. This isn't about making you feel guilty for singing in church or lifting your hands during a song. If your heart is genuinely connecting with Yahweh through music, that's beautiful, that's real. But here's what I am saying. There's a layer of worship, a Hebrew understanding that most believers have never encountered. Not because it's hidden in some secret scroll, but because modern Christianity replaced it with something more comfortable, something that doesn't require as much surrender. I'm not a prophet. I'm not here to sell you a formula. I'm simply someone who's spent years studying the original Hebrew text, the cultural context, the ancient practices, and I've seen a pattern that changed how I pray, how I approach God, how I respond when life falls apart. And today I'm going to walk you through it step by step, slowly, carefully, because this isn't something you rush through. This is something you feel. So take a breath, get comfortable, and let's go back, way back, to the beginning. Let's start with a question most Christians have never been asked. What did the word worship actually mean in the time of Abraham, Moses, and David? Not what does it mean in your church culture today. Not what it feels like during a powerful worship set. But what did it mean in the ancient Hebrew world when a man stood before the creator of the universe? The Hebrew word most commonly translated as worship in your English Bible is soha. And here's where it gets interesting. Soha doesn't mean to sing. It doesn't mean to praise with music. It doesn't even primarily mean to give honor in an abstract sense. Soha means to physically bow down, to prostrate yourself, to lower your body to the ground in complete submission. It's a verb of action, not emotion. It's something you do with your knees, your face, your hands pressed into the dirt. In fact, the literal meaning carries the image of a servant falling before a king or a defeated soldier surrendering on a battlefield. This wasn't a metaphor, this was the posture. Now here's the problem. Somewhere along the journey of translating scripture into English, into modern worship culture, into Sunday morning services with lights and sound systems, the physical act got lost. We turned worship into a feeling, into a genre of music, into an atmosphere we create with the right song at the right moment. And listen, I'm not saying music can't be worship. Scripture is full of commands to sing, to play instruments, to make a joyful noise. But when the Bible talks about shaka, when it describes Abraham worshipping or Joshua worshipping or the elders in Revelation worshipping, it's not describing a song. It's describing a body on the ground. A physical, deliberate, humbling act of submission before the Almighty. And that distinction, that's everything. So let's connect this to your life right now. Think about the last time you worshipped. Maybe it was Sunday morning. Maybe it was in your car, music playing, hands on the steering wheel, tears in your eyes because the lyrics hit something deep. Or maybe it was at a conference, surrounded by thousands of people, lights dimmed, presence of God thick in the room. Beautiful moments. Genuine moments. But ask yourself this, when was the last time you physically bowed before God? When was the last time you got on your knees, not to pray a quick prayer before bed, but to truly lower yourself in recognition of who He is and who you are? This is where modern Christianity has shifted. We've created a culture where worship is primarily vertical emotion, something we feel in our hearts, but we've removed the horizontal reality of the body participating in that surrender. We've intellectualized it. We've made it convenient. You can worship from your seat. You can worship while driving. You can even worship while scrolling through your phone during a slow song at church, and no one would know the difference. But the biblical model, it required something of your body. It required you to stop, to get low, to make yourself physically vulnerable before the one who holds your very breath in His hands. And here's the part that might sting a little. We've replaced shaka with entertainment. I'm not trying to be harsh, I'm just being honest. Walk into most churches today, and the worship experience is designed to make you feel something. The lights, the fog machines, the perfectly timed crescendo in the bridge of the song. It's produced, it's packaged. And again, there's nothing inherently wrong with excellence in music or creating an atmosphere. But when that becomes the primary way we define worship, we've lost the ancient path. We've traded the dust of submission for the comfort of spectatorship. The Hebrews didn't have a worship team. They had an altar. They had a tent of meeting. They had a God who said, "Come near, but take off your shoes. This ground is holy." And they responded by falling on their faces. Let me show you what this looked like in Scripture. Genesis 22:5. Abraham is about to face the most difficult moment of his life. God has asked him to sacrifice Isaac, the son of promise, the child he waited decades for. And as Abraham approaches Mount Moriah, he tells his servants, "Stay here with the donkey while I and the boy go over there. We will worship and then we will come back to you." Did you catch that? Abraham said, "We will worship." He's about to lay his son on an altar. He's about to raise a knife, and he calls it worship. Why? Because worship, in the Hebrew mind, wasn't about the song you sang on the way up the mountain. It was about what you were willing to lay down when you got there. Fast forward to Joshua 5. Joshua is standing outside Jericho, staring at fortified walls, impossible odds, a battle he has no strategy for. And suddenly, the commander of the Lord's army appears before him. Joshua's response, he falls face down to the ground and asks, "What message does my Lord have for his servant?" This wasn't casual, this wasn't symbolic. Joshua, a warrior, a general, a man who led armies, immediately dropped to the dirt in recognition of divine authority. That's shaka. That's the posture that unlocked the strategy for Jericho. Not his confidence, not his battle plan, his surrender. One more. Revelation 4:10. John sees a vision of heaven, and he describes the 24 elders falling down before the one seated on the throne. They cast their crowns at his feet. They worship, and the Greek word used there, proskuneo, it's the New Testament equivalent of shasha. It means the exact same thing: to prostrate, to bow low, to physically demonstrate submission. Here's what's stunning. Even in heaven, where there's no sin, no pride, no rebellion left to battle, worship still involves the body. It still involves getting low, because worship has never been about what you say. It's about what you're willing to become in the presence of the Almighty. And what you become is small, surrendered, dust before the throne. Now let's bring this into your world. You're watching this video for a reason. Maybe you've been praying for months, years, and it feels like heaven is silent. Maybe you've sung all the right songs, read all the right verses, attended all the right services, and still something's missing. You know God is real, you know He hears, but you can't shake the feeling that your prayers are bouncing off the ceiling, that your worship isn't reaching Him the way it should, and you've started to wonder, is it me? Am I doing something wrong? Here's what I believe is happening. You've been taught to worship with your voice, with your emotions, with your thoughts, but you've never been taught to worship with your body. And I don't mean dancing or lifting hands. Those can be beautiful expressions. I mean the deliberate, humbling act of lowering yourself physically before God, of taking your requests, your fears, your desperation, and instead of pacing around your room talking at Him, you get on your knees. You put your face to the floor. You let your body say what your words can't. I am not in control. You are. This is the missing key. The reason Abraham's worship unlocked a ram in the thicket. The reason Joshua's worship unlocked the walls of Jericho. The reason the elders' worship in Revelation grants them access to the throne room. It's not magic, it's not a formula, but there's something about physical submission that aligns the heart in a way nothing else can. Your body trains your spirit. When you physically lower yourself, you're preaching to your own soul. You're saying, pride, step aside, fear, bow down, control, I release you. And God responds to that. Not because He needs you on the ground, but because that's where you finally stop pretending you're in charge. But here's where it gets even deeper. You might be thinking, wait, didn't Jesus say in John 4 that true worshippers will worship in spirit and in truth? Doesn't that mean the physical doesn't matter anymore? This is the question I get all the time, and it's a good question. Because on the surface, it sounds like Yeshua is moving worship away from the body, away from location, away from ritual. The woman at the well asks Him, should we worship on this mountain or in Jerusalem? And He essentially says, neither. It's not about the place, it's about the heart. But here's what we miss. Yeshua wasn't abolishing physical worship. He was correcting empty physical worship. He was addressing people who were going through the motions, bowing, sacrificing, showing up at the temple while their hearts were far from God. That's what He's confronting, the disconnect, the hypocrisy, the performance without presence. But nowhere does He say, so stop using your body in worship. In fact, what does He do? He kneels in Gethsemane. He falls on his face. He sweats drops of blood in submission to the Father's will. Even the Son of God worshipped with his body. Even he got low. Here's the key. Spirit and truth don't replace the body. They flow through the body. True worship is when your interior reality matches your exterior posture. It's when your heart is surrendered and your body reflects that surrender. It's when you're not just singing "I surrender all" while scrolling Instagram. You're actually on your knees, hands open, tears falling, saying, "God, I mean it, take it, all of it." That's spirit and truth working together. That's alignment. And that alignment, that's what moves heaven. The Hebrew understanding was never body or spirit. It was body and spirit. The entire Old Testament sacrificial system was physical. Blood, fire, incense, hands laid on animals. But it was only effective when the heart was right. Psalm 51:16-17. You do not delight in sacrifice, or I would bring it. You do not take pleasure in burnt offerings. My sacrifice, O God, is a broken spirit. A broken and contrite heart you, God, will not despise. David understood. The sacrifice was physical, but the power was in the brokenness behind it. The two were never meant to be separated. So where does that leave you? Right here, right now, with a choice. You can keep worshiping the way you've always worshipped. And if it's working, if your heart is genuinely connecting with Yahweh, if you're experiencing transformation and breakthrough, then by all means, keep going. But if you're stuck, if you've been crying out for answers and heaven feels silent, maybe it's time to try the ancient path. The path Abraham walked, the path Joshua walked, the path every saint in Scripture walked when they needed God to show up. And here's the beautiful part. This isn't complicated. You don't need a PhD in Hebrew. You don't need to travel to Israel or find some secret rabbi to teach you. You just need to be willing to get low. To create a space in your home, in your schedule, in your life, where you physically bow before the Creator. Maybe it's early morning before the world wakes up. Maybe it's late at night after everyone's asleep. But you carve out time. You turn off your phone. You get on your knees, or better yet, on your face, and you bring your real life before Him. Not the sanitized, church-appropriate version. The real thing, the fear, the anger, the confusion, the desperation. And you say, God, I don't have answers, but I'm here, I'm low, I'm yours. This is where breakthrough begins. Not in the song, not in the emotion, in the dirt, in the surrender. In the moment your body finally catches up with what your spirit has been trying to say all along. I need you. I can't do this without you, and I'm done pretending I can. That posture, that humility, that's what opens the door. That's what makes space for God to move. Because He resists the proud, but He gives grace to the humble. And there's no humbler posture than your face on the ground. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. This sounds intense. This sounds uncomfortable. And you're right. It is. Shasha was never meant to be convenient. It was meant to cost you something, your pride, your image, your illusion of control. But here's the trade. You lay down your pride, and you pick up His presence. You release control, and you gain access. You stop performing, and you start encountering. And that encounter, that's what you've been searching for this whole time. not another worship song, not another sermon, an actual, undeniable, life-altering encounter with the living God. And it's waiting for you right on the other side of surrender. So let me tie all of this together, because this isn't just ancient history. This isn't just linguistics and theology. This is about you, your life, your prayers, your breakthrough. Here's what we've uncovered. The Hebrew word for worship, soha, means to bow down, to prostrate yourself, to physically lower your body in submission before God. This wasn't symbolic. This was literal. Every major figure in Scripture practiced this. Abraham when facing the impossible, Joshua when staring at Jericho's walls, David when bringing the ark back to Jerusalem, the elders in Revelation, even in the perfection of heaven, they all got low. They all understood that worship wasn't just what you sang, it was what you were willing to become. And then we saw the shift. How modern Christianity replaced this physical act with emotional experience. How we built worship cultures around music, lights, and atmosphere, beautiful things, but incomplete things. How we've trained an entire generation to worship from their seats, from their cars, from their comfort zones, without ever teaching them that the body plays a role. That surrender isn't just a heart posture, it's a physical one. That when you get on your knees, you're not just praying differently, you're preaching to your own soul, you're training your spirit to submit. And submission, that's where God meets you. We addressed the objection from John 4. Yeshua wasn't abolishing physical worship. He was purifying it. He was saying, don't just go through the motions. Let your heart match your posture. Spirit and truth don't eliminate the body. They flow through it. True worship is alignment. It's when your interior reality, your brokenness, your surrender, your trust matches your exterior posture. It's when you stop singing about surrender and actually do it. On your knees, face down, hands open. And here's the key that unlocks everything. Your body trains your heart. You can't fake humility when you're on your face before God. You can't hold on to pride when your knees are pressed into the floor and your hands are empty. The posture forces something out of you. It forces honesty. It forces desperation. It forces you to stop managing your image and just be. Be broken. Be needy. Be small. And that's exactly where God has been waiting for you all along. This is why Abraham's worship unlocked provision on the mountain, why Joshua's worship unlocked strategy for battle, why the leper's worship in Matthew 8 unlocked healing, why the Syrophoenician woman's persistent, humble posture unlocked a miracle for her daughter. It's not that God needs you to grovel, it's that you need to get low enough to receive what He's been trying to give you. Your pride, your self-sufficiency, your need to stay in control, those things block the flow. But when you bow, the barriers break, the pride crumbles, the walls come down, and what's been waiting in heaven finally has a landing place on earth. So here's the question you have to answer. What are you holding on to that you're afraid to release? What prayer have you been praying standing up that needs to be prayed on your knees? What area of your life have you been trying to manage, control, fix on your own, when God's been waiting for you to just get low and say, I can't, but you can? This is the worship God responds to, not the loudest song, not the most emotional moment, the lowest posture, the broken heart, the surrendered will. And when you bring that before him, not once, but as a practice, a rhythm, a lifestyle, everything shifts. Not because you've unlocked some magic formula, but because you've finally stepped into the ancient path, the path of the patriarchs, the path of the prophets, the path of every believer who ever learned that the way up is down. So let's bring this home. Take a breath. I know this has been heavy. I know it's challenged some things you might have believed for years, but that's okay. Truth does that. It disrupts. It realigns. And if your heart is stirring right now, that's not me. That's the Ruach, the Spirit, inviting you deeper. Here's what I want you to understand. This isn't about condemnation. You're not doing worship wrong if you've never practiced chacha before. You're not a bad Christian if this is the first time you're hearing this. God doesn't measure your worth by how many times you've been on your face before him. He measures it by the cross, by Yeshua. By grace, you are loved, are accepted, you are his. But if you want more, if you want breakthrough, if you want to experience God in a way that goes beyond Sunday morning emotions and actually transforms your Monday mornings, your anxiety, your relationships, your finances, your purpose, then this is the invitation. Get low. Not as a religious duty, not as a box to check, but as a response, as a love language. As the physical expression of what your heart has been screaming, God, I need you. Start simple. Tonight, before you go to bed, find a quiet place. Turn off the lights, get on your knees, and just be there. You don't have to say the perfect prayer. You don't have to quote scripture. Just bring your real life before him. The stuff you've been carrying, the questions you've been avoiding, the fear you've been hiding, and let your body say what your words can't. I'm yours. I'm low. I'm listening. Do that for a week, just a week, and watch what happens. Watch how your heart starts to shift. Watch how your prayers start to feel different. Watch how the noise in your head starts to quiet and the voice of the Father starts to break through. This is the ancient path, and it's still open. It's still alive, and it's still the way God meets his people. And listen, if this resonated with you, if something in your spirit just woke up, don't let this be the last time you hear this truth. Hit that subscribe button. Turn on notifications, because every single week we're going deeper into the Hebrew roots, the forgotten practices, the biblical truths the modern church doesn't talk about anymore. This is a community of seekers, of truth lovers, of people who aren't satisfied with shallow faith, and you belong here. Drop a comment below and let me know. Have you ever practiced shaka? Have you ever physically bowed before God in worship? I want to hear your story. And if you haven't, maybe this is your moment. Maybe this is the video that changes everything. Now go, get low, and watch heaven respond.